Alright, this video, I'm just kind of making this video mainly for you. I'm just going to kind of ramble on as I really haven't really prepared to make this or anything, so basically I'm just going to go ahead and get into the skills. Just getting into it. Usually when I come across someone in Cyrodiil or something like that, I'm going to go ahead and slot for what I use in Cyrodiil and that sort of thing. Typically, I've got Crushing Shock, Hunting Curse, Crystal Frags, and Rune Cage. Now, a lot of the times what I like to do is I get into a situation with an enemy. I'm going to hit them with about 3 skills. Usually it's a couple Crushing Shocks along with Hunting Curse. I like to keep Hunting Curse on because it just does so much damage. I've been actually critting since this build for about 21k. Now that's on the high end, you know, it sometimes it crits for 19 and that sort of thing. But in general, this crit's pretty high. And it can hit twice, basically inside of a 12-second period. So it's really one of the strongest damage over time skills in the game. Basically, you can fire this and forget, and I like that. I like the idea of fire and forget because you don't really have to worry about it afterwards. It's going to do its damage. It's going to do its job. Of course, Crystal Frags. What I like to do is use this. Maybe use this first, then use this, and then whenever this procs, of course, go to Crystal Frags. Now, I'm just going to buff up with a spell power potion. Notice how just how much Crystal Frags damage does. This is kind of in the lines of what a Wrecking Blow might do, or something like that. Only its range, and you don't have to be right there at the enemy to do that. And once it procs, it's instant. Of course, you know about that. Now, previously, for the gank build, I had advised you on the other morph, and while that does work, it works for the Storm Calling ability, Power Overload. Power Overload will allow you to, it'll make use of that because you could shoot off the other mark, which arcs, but this will get there first. And so if you're trying to, you know, hit somebody out of stealth, you know, firing this and then firing this, so that this actually hits at about just slightly before this will on the other morph, of course, because the other morph it curves as kind of an arc, so you get all the benefits of that, which can be pretty deadly. But I found that fighting with this is typically a lot better, just because you can, you know, you can fire it and it does a lot of damage and it doesn't really cost that much. So I like to keep this here. Rune Cage. Usually I like to use this on an enemy when they're down. It's hard to say, but you know, when they're down to like maybe around 50% or less, you hit them with this, and they're not going to be able to break this right away. I've had it used on me, and it's really pretty hard to break. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. if you use this and an enemy isn't able to CC, of course you have, you know, about 5 seconds to have your way with them. But anyway, I've kept this on my bar just as something that I found invaluable. Now, like on certain larger enemies like trolls and woolly mammoths and that sort of thing, you can hit them with the rune cage and it'll actually entrap them. It just about entraps everything, except if they're already aggroed and they're coming at you, you're not going to be able to trap them with that. And of course I use Hardened Ward. Now Hardened Ward gives me, that's my strongest shield. I'm going to get into the champion points here. It'll be under this tree, the Lord tree in the red. Of course I got 22 points in a bastion. Now this is giving me, you know, like 22 out of 25, or out of 25%. This is giving me 22. So putting more points here would give me about 3%. And you could actually do that here, but I'd like to put points into other areas just because there's a greater effect and that sort of thing. But anyway, I use this Ice Comet. This is a really handy skill. I've used this. It's basically kind of a fire and forget. It'll hit somebody. I use it also in PvE situations as well. Usually in PvE, what I use is the Destruction Staff ability, Eye of the Storm. Because usually in PvE, you need some sort of area of effect. And usually when I use this, I have a lot of mobs and that sort of thing coming at me. And this will pretty much clear out that area. So this is a great AoE. Now, keep in mind too that when you're in a dungeon, Haunting Curse can be really good too, because once it goes off, it'll also hit surrounding enemies and that sort of thing as well. So it's not just single target, mainly single target. Usually I like to use this up against a boss type situation, but a lot of times what you'll see me do is I'll go in with the this setup here, and basically I do Blockade of Storms as well as Shock Ring. I'll show you what this does. It's just kind of a habit, I guess. See if I can find some sort of enemy to go against. I think this area is kind of devoid of that for right now, but anyway, what I do is I'll have an enemy in front of me, and I'll hit him with this, and as you can see, this is about the area of Elemental Blockade, and it lasts a pretty good little while. Fairly easy to keep up, and you can see whenever it does go out, you'll be able to see it. So this does a lot of damage in the background to enemies while you're trying to when you're fighting them, like if you're fighting a boss or that sort of thing. You can do that. But what I also like to do, usually, like there's a mob of enemies in front of me, and I'll hit that, and then I'll use this skill here, which is shock ring. Now the other one morphs on yourself, and it's useful as well, because usually in PvE situations you'll have a bunch of mobs surrounding you, and that's generally what they do. But I like to keep this damage going, and this way this is all working in the background against a lot of enemies, so you're going to get a lot of DPS that way. But then I like to shock ring them as well. And I can aim using this skill. I don't have to just do something that is surrounding me. I can aim it at something else and have that work. So typically with hitting enemies, it hits them for about 5,000, but it's still really good. You can hit when you're hitting multiple enemies with this, and then this will be working in the background every second. So this is a really good combination for a PvE type situation. And really, if used right, it's probably not too bad for a PvP situation either. But it's probably not my skill of choice for PvP. Generally, when I go into a dungeon, this and that's what I use, and that's how I'm able to knock out so many enemies. But for PvP, of course, I like Haunting Curse. This is kind of a really good ability to slot. And as far as Blockade of Storms, I really like the Dark Magic ability, Rune Cage. Buffed up, this deals 65-90 magic damage when the stun ends. So that's really powerful. I'm gonna go ahead and set this in. Actually, it's 66-39. That's what I've used. Of course, in any situation, both PvP or PvE, your shields are going to be the main thing, and you got to keep those shields up. Basically, shield goes up for 6 seconds. Now this is going to be halved in a PvP area, so you just remember that. In a PvP area, when I think I'm going to run into some trouble, I'll go ahead and double cast this, and that'll give me some protection. As you can see, I'm up to 32,499 with this, so that really works, and a lot of people use that there. Although, when you're in a PvP situation, you're going to have to kind of prioritize just when and how you're going to use this, because just keep in mind this uses a lot of magicka as well, and it takes a little bit, for you to cast it. It's kind of a 1 second deal, but this is just something to pay attention to. this is what I mean by my back bar. My back bar, I've got my restoration staff and a whole list of skills on my back bar. I've got dark conversion, which heals me for about 8059. As you can see, that's what it's doing. What it also does, I'm going to go ahead and try to get rid of some magicka here. Okay, that's restoring magicka at the rate of 4696. Almost 4700 magicka. So my magicka really restores pretty well from that skill, and I like to keep that here just in case. Now, of course, I use streak a lot of the time. This is helpful for getting away, but it is also helpful for streaking into an enemy. Like I ran into a Zerg, and I think it was in Imperial City, and basically it was like about 10 of them, or I don't know how many it was. I didn't really have time to sit around and count them, but instead of just having them mow me over, I streaked through them and got on the other side of them, and I forget the total outcome of that battle, but I was able to survive it. I do remember that part. So, sometimes what you can do is, let's just say this rock ahead of me is my enemy. Go ahead and streak through and attack from behind. Streak through, attack from behind. And that sort of thing. And it's really hard for any enemy to focus or to do anything, because it's going to take him a little while to react, and that time frame is going to give you a chance to do something. So that's one of the things. Plus, it will stun your enemy as well for 1.5 seconds. Now this is Power Surge. This is what heals you. Really good skill to have. It gives you major brutality, major sorcery for 33 seconds, and while active, your critical strike heals you for 2550 health. Now I've known people that have replaced this skill with the other skill, Degeneration. This binds an enemy with chaotic magic, dealing 6920 magic damage over 14.4 seconds and healing you for 1648 health and an additional 1648 health every 6 seconds. Your light and heavy attacks have a chance to heal you for 150% of the damage caused. And this grants major sorcery, which increases your spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. I like this skill. Basically what I've done is I've used Power Surge though, because it's kind of more of a guarantee, and it lasts a little bit longer, 33 seconds versus 20 seconds. But this one seems to be the better bet. Now you could put either or even sometimes both. I've done that too. Certain bosses, having that on them will help. But anyway, This is Boundless Storm. Uh, it gives you manifest yourself as pure lightning, zapping nearby enemies with electricity, dealing 847 shock damage every 23 seconds. Now, while you're in this farm, you gave Major Resolve and Major Ward, increasing your physical resistance by 5280. Well, if you notice my spell resistance and physical resistance numbers, then I hit that. Notice now basically I've got 22,844 along with 21,000. So these are pretty good numbers. Now normally they wouldn't be, except I've got the Mighty Children's and I've got the Power Skeleton guys. I could actually, I'm going to go ahead and repair my armor. This is something else to think about. If you're in Dungeons and Delves, you kind of want to keep this, stay on top of this. I like keeping these grand repair kits just for the sake of this sort of thing. So anyway, there we have it. I don't think those numbers changed, but anyway, that's what I got going there. So this one is Harness Magicka. It's a pretty expensive skill to use. You've got 3902 Magicka versus your other one is 2984. So this is the one I like to try and keep using. This one, Harness Magic, you will get magic back from, you know, someone that's hitting you. And of course you can find this under the light armor tree. Now there's another morph to this that I think it gives you a little bit more for every piece of light armor. It's really up to you. I don't really consider this to be that important except at certain times. You know, like when you're in a dungeon, you know you're going to take a lot of damage. You know, I like to go ahead and double stack. And there I have it. I've got 32k protection. And of course, absorption field. This is an interesting one. It puts a globe out and silences and stuns enemies for about 12 seconds. And this really heals you for a ton of healing while you're inside of it. I didn't realize it when I marked it, but it really does. It gives you a lot of healing. Now what you can do if you want, you could put in power overload, and of course you know what this does by now. I've got 16,849 shock damage on my light attacks. Well, if I go into it, now I've got 19 shock damage. But that's also in part because I've got bound armaments here, which increases my max damage is increased, and my light attack damage is increased as well. Of course, I've got Power Surge, Radiant Mage Light. This is all abilities that I use. Now, if I hit somebody with this ability, if I hit them once and they seem like they're not going down right away, I can also use my rune cage here, and my rune cage will trap them, and in fact allowing me to kind of hit them with some more of this. So I don't really even have a crystal shard procced here or slotted here or anything. Basically what I've got is just Radiant Mage Light, which will add to my light attack 40%. I've got this, which gives me 11%. So basically from these two, I gain an actual 31%. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and hit Radiant Mage Light and see how that changed. My power overload went to 24k. Now if that crits, it's probably going to crit. It was critting at your house for about 40k on this particular setup. Just getting into the champion points here. One of the reasons for that is I've got 61% into Outborn, so a crit, anytime a crit happens, I get that buff and add at 21%. So this is going to really just, it's going to really hit like a truck. But anyway, I got that. This is my setup on this bar now. What you could do is you could take Power Surge off of here, just use a potion for that added 20%, and use one of the Psijic abilities. Now I don't know exactly which one it is, but there's a Psijic ability that will give you an added 10% critical damage. So what you could do is if you're going into a fight, and normally have your Russo staff, and you wanted to enact that Psijic ability, well, all of a sudden you can get into your power overload, and whichever Psijic ability it is that gives you that added 10% damage, it's going to proc for somewhere between 20 and 30 seconds. I think it's like 20 seconds. But it gives you an added 10% critical damage. So you can hit that and then go right back to this bar, and that will carry over for the time frame allotted. So this whole set basically allows you to run that. What I used to do is I would keep this slotted on my destruction staff, and if I wanted to put, say, Daedric, let's see, where is it? Daedric Minefield, I could put that here. Okay, say I'm sitting at a flag and I want to go ahead and do my Daedric Mines, but my slots are filled with other things. Well, I just go here. There's my Daedric Mines. I go back to the other bar, and I've got some form of protection. So my Daedric Mines are here, protecting me, and then I can go do other things. Sometimes if you're surrounded by enemies, this is a good thing to have. But anyway, that's kind of the setup. Normally what I've used though is the absorption field. I haven't really, to be honest, I really haven't used the power over that much. Not that I won't in the future. It's a very good system. It's just that I like the fire and forget ability of Ice Comet. Ice Comet does so much damage. It crits. For me, it's critting at about 31k. It has pretty good AoE, and it does a lot of frost damage every 1 second for 11 seconds. So if you're in a situation, just remember this is going to do a lot of damage. So like if you're against the boss in a dungeon or something like that, you know, and you're using single to target, this is a very good thing to have, as it'll do a lot of damage there. Usually with these builds, I'll try to figure out a good combination, and I've actually looked it up online, and I'll post some links. But sometimes what you could do is search around, and you can also watch videos on YouTube. You know, guys like the Pelican. He's really pretty good on that stuff. I've caught him on a few things that weren't doing as much damage as he could have, but I mean, he's such a good player that it really, probably for him it doesn't matter. He uses a Nernhone staff, whereas I use a Fuse staff, which I need to keep after because it uses a lot of soul gems. But this in my tests, of course, as you know, has done more damage than really sharpened or anything else, and by quite a bit. So I've kept this up. On your rings, you like to have purple, but going from purple to gold, it doesn't really give you all that much percentage-wise. Of course, if you're in the game and you have the materials and all that, great, use them. It's not like you're going to use them for anything else, but I like having at least purple on my items. I will probably gold these up fairly soon, but anyway, I've got it here. Some of the rest of the stuff I've golded up. Basically, this is what I'm going to keep as my build. I think I'm just going to use the Pirate Skeleton and a Mighty Chulman. This combination has really made me tanky in such a way that I've been able to survive games and that sort of thing. Of course, I'm pretty good at keeping my shields up, but as far as shields and that sort of thing goes, you're not always going to have your shields up 100% of the time, and this will allow you to keep a certain degree of tankiness up when you don't have that. So whatever gets past the shields still has to get past critical resistance and physical and spell resistance. So I'm not just sitting out there. There's a lot of mages that use like Divine's armor or something of that nature. Something which will give them more damage or magic or something like that. But they don't really have the critical resistance or anything else. And light armor, I mean, as you can see here, this is one of the largest pieces of light armor. It gives me 1221, which is really pretty pathetic. This is golded out, so light armor just doesn't get hardly any protection at all. Whereas if, let me see. I'm getting on a medium piece green. I'm getting this much. But as you know, light armor point being light armor, just it doesn't hardly give you anything. So, of course, you know, my larger pieces I like to keep heavy armor. Um, and I, you know, there's a couple ways to do this, but ideally you do want to have that 5 pieces of light. And of course, when I get the Undaunted passive, having a medium here and a heavy here will give me 6% of what I have now, which, well, roughly, I'm guessing roughly 17, 1800 stats along the way. So I'll have a little bit more health. I'll have, you know, a little bit more magicka. Actually, a pretty good bit of magicka, and a little bit more stamina. So, you know, all these things are good. And right now I'm kind of operating at a deficit, you know, by not having that ability. I would do a lot better if I did have those abilities, but anyway, it's just something I don't have yet. I'm going to have to work on that. Let's see, right now I'm at 4. I'll need to work my way up to 9. And I'll get there. You know, I'll get there. This really helps. So it's just kind of a must-have. Let's see what else. Like when you're going to flags and keeps, when we were operating under our Dragon Knights, we had a certain amount of either minor befell or major befell. You either have that for the glyph or the shield skill, reverberating dash. But on this, I really don't have that, and I don't really feel like slotting into Zeev's glyph on the staff. So basically, whenever you go to those keeps, your dynamics are going to be just a little bit different. So you're going to want to you want to take out the healers first. Couple things you can do. You can CC him using this, hit him with Date Haunting Curse, and then spam this until your Crystal Frags procs. Your Crystal Frags is always going to be the priority. You're going to want to do that, but only when it procs. So, what I'm going to try to do... Okay, you see that crystal glow around my hand? That's what you want. Okay, now my Crystal Frags is going to hit for 14,257 when it procs. But it's not going to be an instant cast all the time, and it's not going to be a... Okay, now it's proccing again. So, as you, as you can see, that deal, and your game is going to make somewhat of a sound when that does proc. So you can hear it in the background here. So yeah, you hear that. Of course, there it is for you. You're ready to proc. And sometimes it'll proc a lot, and sometimes you'll feel yourself struggling to get it to proc. Now, a Crystal Frag can actually proc another Crystal Frag. It's anything, any other magic ability will give you a 35% chance of causing it to proc. So there you have it. You know, it can proc at basically any time. Now, as far as getting around in Imperial City, okay, this gives you major expedition for a certain while. Slow down. So as a sorcerer, you've got a pretty good degree of mobility. It travels just a little bit faster. Now, a lot of the times what I do in Imperial City is I'll proc that. As you can see what I'm doing here, I'm keeping my Boundless Storm up, and my streaks are giving me a certain amount of distance, and I can keep that going in an emergency about 4 streaks. Okay, I've got about 5 there. As you can see, I'm basically streaking and then recharging. Recharge. Balance Storm again. And you can keep going like that. Basically, that's one of the things that I don't really need to do is use a horse in Imperial City, because generally I'm fast enough while I'm out there. And anytime you're on a horse, there is a certain amount of vulnerability you have to snip somebody yanking you or something of that nature. But you know, if I'm in this state, I'm always on the ground and ready. I'll get into some of the ways that I learn combat techniques, and this is kind of up to you. But of course, you know, in any fight, you're not going to necessarily have. You're not going to have a winning combination unless you practice, and I guess that just kind of takes time. You know. Now this is Rune Cage. Of course, this is for PvP, but I'm going to go ahead and use Elemental Blockade here. Now this is a typical thing that I can use on a boss. Now in Moloch Ball the other day, I applied this technique. Or one of the bosses. I went ahead, put that up. I hit him with the Daedric Curse, or Haunting Curse, and you keep this up, Haunting Curse, and then you switch bars, and you streak through. And you just keep, a lot of these bosses I'm able to do that. You just streak to the other side of them. Hit them with a few Destruction Staff skills, a Haunting Curse, heavy attacks. side attacks. Coughing today. My allergies are really acting up, so I'm coughing a lot, and my eyes are all red and everything. I imagine people must be, you know, wherever I go, people must think I smoke pot or something. I don't, but, you know, my eyes are all red, so. Anyway, this is just something you can do. You can practice your rotations on mobs and that sort of thing. And that's a really good way to do it. I know bar swapping is kind of a weakness for you. You don't like doing it, but you know, if you are able to access all those skills and use them, you know, it'll really help you out there. As you can see, there's certain moves you can practice that will be to your benefit. So anyway, I think that's about it. You know, once you practice your bar swapping, it really becomes second nature. And on my bar swap, something I use to help me is I keep them different, and you know, it doesn't matter what they are, but this will help you to realize which bar you're on, because sometimes you do lose track of that, and you know, the bar that you're on is, you know, you kind of get lost. So, you know, basically with my setup, I've got my barbaric style here and my Nord style here. So I've got these two, which are different. Of course, my restoration staff, I can look at it and say, okay, there's my restoration staff, or I can look at it and say, there's my destruction staff, and I know that I'm on the correct bar for whatever it is I gotta do. That's just one of the clues I use. It really helps. Usually, getting into a fight, of course. Okay, now I'm ready. But I use the back bar for all the buffs and that sort of thing. Getting ready for the enemy, and this is what I use to execute them. There's all these here. Of course, you gotta develop your own play style, you know, but that's typically what I use. But people are really, they're kind of amazed at the build, you know, at what I'm able to do with it. You know, I've gone in a lot of dungeons and that sort of thing, where I'm the sole survivor fighting the boss. This happens all the time. You know, and I guess it's kind of an ego booster. It makes you look like a badass, but it's really just all about the fact that I'm a sorc and I have a natural protection of shields anyway. Along with that, I've got a good bit of spell and physical resistance, so that when something does get through, it's not going to one-shot me. Matter of fact, I'm probably tankier than a lot of people out there in medium and heavier armor. Now I could pick something else. It will give me more magicka and that sort of thing. But I've really enjoyed this. Just the fact that I'm able to do stuff that other people can't do. So it's been real. It's been really good to me. Now, trying to figure figure out what else there is that I would have to say about all this. I guess when you're in the game, you know, there's certain people that you want to befriend and hang around and have a good time with. You know, like I think back to the days of the original group with I think it's Blonde Beauty. Oh, where is she? There she is, Sorcerer Mistress. Okay, these are good people to play with. When you have someone like that, some of my other friends are really excellent to play with, and I've had a really good time with them. Sometimes going into a PvE situation or even PvP with a group of people you don't know, of course you run the risk of just running into assholes out there. I remember that one time, you know, Blonde Beauty invited us in, and it wasn't just that one guy. I mean, they were all a little bit kind of jerks, and I stayed for a while, but then after a while, he was like, you know what, I'm not having fun here, so really I just need to go. And so that's what I did, and I just don't spend time there with that crowd. Some of these guys take the game way too seriously. You know, I'm here to drink and have a few beers and have, you know, fun with friends and go out on raids and different things, and that, you know, it's been a lot of fun from the comfort of my own home. I don't get out as much as I used to, you know, due to health problems and that sort of thing, but, you know, this game has really been a blessing to me. You know, I've had a lot of good fun with it, and I hope to continue doing that in the future. But anyway, you know, that's the whole point. And out in Cyrodiil, I've stopped doing groups. You know, people would ask you for help and stuff like that, and then they would you get in their group, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm the boss, and I just hate a game boss. I can't hardly stand them. So I generally don't group that much with people anymore in Cyrodiil. I just kind of go out there and handle it myself. Usually I do a pretty good job of that. There's, you know, I'll get out there and, you know, my solo play. If I'm not, rarely do I lose if I'm not getting Zerg. I usually win. Of course, there are still those players that are just really good out there, and they're just really good players, and you're not gonna hardly get past them. But anyway, most of the time these days, I'll go out there and I'll just do it alone, or if even Imperial City, a lot of the times I'll just do that alone, since I'm able to solo the bosses in there now. I just do that, you know, and I'm able to get a lot of Telvars that way, because you really don't have to share with the crowd or anything. On the flip side, you have the chance of, you know, of course, dying and getting ganked too, but that's becoming rarer and rarer. So yeah, that's what I do. I guess one of the main things about a Sorc is as long as you got that bubble around you, you've got protection. Now, you know, people can try to do damage to you and eat away at that bubble, but basically nothing really touches you if you're inside that bubble. So you just keep that bubble up, and then using your skill, using the power surge or another healing skill, that'll keep you healed, and you can heal while you're in that bubble. Basically, you can just run heavy attacks and just stay inside that bubble and heal, and it works out pretty well. That's how I soloed that one boss. Oh, let me see. Vardenfell, I think it was up here. This guy here, there was mobs coming at me, and basically I just did a lot of heavy attacks. Some hunting curse, because if you hit one of the mobs inside, basically the hunting curse will go off twice. It'll kill the original guy, but it has some AoE damage as well. But basically I was just able to keep the heavy attacks up and keep the shields up and get that guy. And it worked out pretty well for me. So anyway, I think that's probably about it. Main thing, shields, and then heal while you're inside that shield. And you know, it's very hard for anything else to touch you. I really like what they've done with this place as far as the way it looks. Vardenfell, or where am I at? Artaeum. I can never say these names right, but they've done a really beautiful job with the with you know the added content, and I'm confident that probably in the future they're going to keep doing a better and better job. It's really good to see. So just getting into one more thing here. Okay, I've kept this lightning staff of Julianos. I've kept that just so that I would have the life drain attachment. In some of those situations where it's extra hard on you, of course you're going to get life drain, and this will actually it'll crit heal me for about 1913, which is quite a bit, really. I don't usually use this, but in an extra hard situation, you know, it's something to consider. As far as rings and that sort of things goes, and sets, sometimes it's good to just look up on the internet all the different sets that there are, and you'll find that you'll find a pretty good combination. And that's what I've done, is basically just use videos and that sort of thing just to get ideas. Like, I watch Pelican videos all the time. I don't do everything that he says, but I get different ideas, and that's where I got this idea, and it's worked out pretty well for me. So I've done that. Yeah, I guess that's about it for the video. I've kind of rambled on for a while about this stuff, but anyway, it's there for you. I'm gonna hope that my internet cooperates tonight, and I can get this thing uploaded. It might even take me a couple days. I'm not sure. You know, I might have to upload it in steps. YouTube actually does that for you. But anyway, I guess I'll wrap this up, and I'll talk to you later. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.